Okay, so I've got all my joints renamed, and now I'm going to start mirroring joints and working on the hierarchy just a little bit more. I've got this base joint that also needs to be a duplicate there that leads up the spine. So I'm going to duplicate this whole thing, Control D. I'm going to delete all of its children. And I'm going to relabel this one to spine 0 underscore joint. And now I need to insert it in the hierarchy. Okay, so I middle mouse click it and drag it over there. There's spine 1. I'm going to grab that and parent it to spine 0. Okay, so now I've got a joint that's right at the root that leads up the spine, but it's not my base joint. That's the key part. Okay, I need to do the same thing for the transition between the spine and the neck. Okay, so I'm going to grab the top spine joint, duplicate it, delete all of its children, and rename this to neck 0 underscore joint. Then I'm going to parent neck 1 to that joint. Okay, and then I need to parent neck 0 to spine 4. Okay, so that gives me, so in essence, spine 4 and neck 0 are the same joint, but we're going to rig them into different hierarchies. You know, one's going to be along with the neck, and one's going to belong with the spine. You know, and and typically when we're talking about rigging, CG rigging, the neck, while it is part of the spine anatomy, we rig it separately. Okay, so we're not normally concerned about making the neck and the back work together in CG rigging. Okay, so let's see. I need to do the same thing with the hip joint and the base joint, and yeah, I'll do it with the tail too. So I need to duplicate this 2 more times. And one of these is going to go, I'm going to call the hips joint. And again, these are just right at the base, right here at the base. So this is, I'm going to call it hips underscore JNT. So both hips will be parented to this joint eventually. Okay. Then I'm going to delete all of these children on this duplicate. I'm going to rename it to tail 0 underscore joint. And I need to parent these in the hierarchy. So let me make this a little bigger so we can see it easier. And tail 0, I've already got a tail 0, so I need to rename this one to tail 1. Because I don't want anything to have identical names throughout the hierarchy. Tail 2 and then tail tip. Okay, so I can grab tail 1 and parent it to tail 0. Then I can grab tail 0 and parent it to base. Okay, and it actually went down there. Then I'm going to grab the hip left joint and parent it to hips joint. And then I'm going to grab the hips joint and middle mouse click and drag it to base joint. Okay, and now I've got all the joints that I need. So I can start mirroring joints, but I need to add in this hierarchy over here for the shoulder. Okay, so we need to figure out where should this be parented to. Now the birds actually have a collarbone, It is my understanding that it's immobile. It's fused. So we could be wrong. We can always add that in later if we find out that I am wrong, or if you feel like you need one. But just so you know where it's at, if I were to go to my joint tool, go to the side view, it's typically about right here, from what I understand. And then it'd be moved out a little bit from the center, maybe about right there. And then this shoulder would be parented to that, and then this would be parented to the spine. Okay? So maybe I'll go ahead and add it in just to be safe. So we'll call this collarbone, or collar underscore joint on the left side, if that's even spelled right. Okay, and then we're going to grab this. We're going to parent the wing to it, the shoulder to the collar, and then we're going to parent the collar to, it's undecided, I'm going to have to get out my anatomy book real quick. Make sure I parent it to the right location. Okay. So it's actually parented to the, just like us, which I kind of figured, but just like us, it's parented to this top of the spine or the beginning of the neck. But I'm going to do it to the top of the spine. So I'm going to grab it and drag it to the top of the spine. Okay, now that joint is not oriented correctly because I just added it in. So I need to reorient this particular joint just in case we end up using it. So with that selected, we go to skeleton, orient joint tool, and we want X to be the primary axis. Orient children as selected joint. We want to make sure that's deselected because we've already oriented these joints, the other joints. Okay, so this ought to work. Let's just click apply and see what happens. Okay, so we got Y pointing down on this one, but we need it pointing up. So I'm going to select it again, change this to positive, and click orient. Now that should be good. Okay, now this is really fast. I can start mirroring joints. And only really need to mirror the wing and the hip. So I'm going to grab this collarbone, this collar joint, and I'm going to go to skeleton, mirror joint, option box, and I'm going to tell it to mirror across the YZ plane. So if I look at from the front view, the Y and the Z are stacked on top of each other, so that's the plane I need to mirror across. I want to mirror for behavior, and that because I've already named everything, I can tell it to search for _L_ and replace that with _R_, and it's going to do all the renaming for me. So there we go, and there we go, and now I've got all the joints for both sides, and that's all there is to that. Now one final thing, just because I wasn't paying attention, I need this jaw joint to be oriented correctly to the tip of the beak. So I'm going to duplicate it and then move it, that duplicate, to that tip of the beak. Okay? And I need to parent it to this joint. So with that original, with the duplicate selected,